Buchenwald concentration camp, Germany, April 1945. Prisoner number 174517. Samuel Goldstein weighed 38 kilograms when American tanks broke through the gates of hell. His sunken eyes had seen horrors that no human mind should carry. His prisoner number replaced his name for almost 3 years, but amid the chaos of liberation, while American soldiers wept at the sight of piles of bodies and prisoners who looked more like walking skeletons, Samuel Goldstein made a promise that would define the next 12 years of his life. This is the second story of The Last Train Home. The story of a man who survived the unthinkable and transformed his pain into a mission to find any trace of his lost family. And it all began with a promise. Samuel Goldstein was arrested in Berlin in November 1942. Jacob's younger brother. He had chosen to stay in Germany when Jacob fled to Paris in 1935. "Someone needs to take care of our parents," Samuel had written to Jacob. "And this can't last forever." He was wrong. And when the deportations began, Samuel discovered that optimism can be the most dangerous thing during a war. Samuel was a violinist like Jacob, but never professional. He gave private lessons in a small studio in Charlottenburg, teaching Jewish children whose parents still believed that music could protect them from the growing hatred. In October 1942, the lessons stopped. In November, Samuel received the letter, "Relocation to the East. Bring only essentials." He kept a single photograph of the family, Jacob, Miriam, and the 2 little girls he had never met in person. Rachel and Rebecca, his nieces who lived in Paris. The train journey to Buchenwald lasted 3 days in cattle cars, 80 people crammed into a space made for 20 animals. No food, no water, no sanitation. Samuel used those 3 days to memorize every detail of the family photograph. The faces of Rachel and Rebecca. Miriam's smile. Jacob's proud posture with his violin. "If I survive this," he whispered to himself as the train swayed toward the unknown, "I will find them. All of them." Buchenwald was the opposite of everything Samuel knew about humanity. 14 hours of forced labor per day. Daily ration. 1 slice of black bread and thin potato soup. Beatings for imaginary infractions. And constant death. From hunger, disease, brutality, or simply from losing the will to live. Samuel saw friends die in his arms. He saw men break completely, losing their sanity. He saw others surrender to despair and voluntarily walk toward the electrified fences. But Samuel had something that many others lost. A specific purpose. Every night before falling asleep on the wooden bunk shared with 5 other prisoners, he whispered the names: Jacob, Miriam, Rachel, Rebecca. It was his prayer, his anchor, his reason not to give up when every cell in his body begged him to simply stop fighting. In December 1944, Samuel weighed 42 kilograms. He had lost almost 30 kilograms since arrival. His hands, once agile for playing violin, were deformed by forced labor and hunger. But it was that month when he met Ernst Weber, a German political prisoner who had been in Buchenwald since 1938. Ernst had created a secret information network among prisoners, names of people sought by relatives, news from the outside world smuggled by sympathetic guards. "Do you have family outside Germany?" Ernst asked one night. "My brother fled to Paris with his wife and 2 small daughters." Ernst made a mental note. "If we survive this, I'll help you look for them." In the war's final months, as the sound of Allied bombing approached, the SS guards became more nervous and brutal. They knew the end was coming and began trying to erase evidence of their crimes. In March 1945, the death marches began. Prisoners forced to walk hundreds of kilometers to other camps, many dying along the way. Samuel was on the list for the next march when American tanks appeared on the horizon. April 11, 1945, 3:30 p.m. The first American tank broke through Buchenwald's gates while Samuel was in the camp infirmary, delirious with typhoid fever. He weighed 38 kilograms, and the prisoner doctors didn't expect him to survive more than a few days. But when he heard voices shouting in English, "Jesus Christ, what did they do to you?" Samuel found strength from somewhere impossible. The American soldier who found Samuel in the infirmary was Robert Thompson from Ohio. He had seen combat in Normandy, had witnessed the brutality of war. But nothing had prepared him for Buchenwald. "Hey buddy, you're safe now," Robert said, holding Samuel's skeletal hand. Samuel tried to speak in English, something he had learned in school before the war. My family. Find my family." Robert nodded, not fully understanding but seeing the urgency in Samuel's sunken eyes. During the first days after liberation, Samuel oscillated between consciousness and delirium. American military doctors fought to save him. His body was so debilitated that food itself could kill him if administered too quickly. But in moments of lucidity, Samuel obsessively repeated, "Jacob Goldstein, Paris, musician. 2 daughters, Rachel, Rebecca. I must find them." It was during his recovery that Samuel met Chaplain David Rosenberg, an American military rabbi assigned to help Jewish survivors. Rosenberg spoke Yiddish and German fluently. "Tell me about your family," Rosenberg said gently. Samuel, still weak but with a clearer mind, told everything he knew. Jacob had fled to Paris in 1935, worked as a musician, married to Miriam, 2 small daughters born in Paris. "Chaplain," Samuel said, gripping Rosenberg's hand with surprising strength. "For almost 3 years, the only thing that kept me alive was the promise to find them. If they're dead, I need to know. If they're alive, I need to find them." Rosenberg saw something in Samuel's eyes that he recognized, the same iron determination that had allowed him to survive hell. "We'll find them," Rosenberg promised. "One way or another, we'll discover the truth." In June 1945, Samuel had recovered enough weight to leave the military hospital. He weighed 52 kilograms, still dangerously thin but alive. Ernst Weber, who had also survived, kept his promise to help. "Samuel," Ernst said, "I made contacts with organizations in Paris that are looking for survivors. I'll give them your names. And I'll give you some names too, people who can help you when you get to Paris." Samuel carefully kept the addresses that Ernst had handwritten. Before leaving Germany, Samuel made one last visit to Buchenwald, now empty, but preserved by the Allies as evidence of Nazi crimes. He stood where the infirmary had been, where he had almost died. And there, in the place where he had whispered his family's names for months, he made a solemn promise. "Jacob, Miriam, Rachel, Rebecca, if you are alive somewhere, I will find you. If you are dead, I will honor you. This I swear." July 1945. Samuel arrived in Paris on an Allied military train, carrying only a small suitcase with clothes donated by the American Army and the crumpled photograph of his family, the same one he had protected for almost 3 years in Buchenwald. Paris was rebuilding, but the scars of occupation were still visible. Bombed buildings, broken shop windows, and a strange silence where there had once been music in the streets. Samuel's first stop was the address Ernst had given, the headquarters of OSI, Œuvre de Secours aux Enfants, a Jewish organization that helped reunite families separated by war. Madame Léonie Bernard, OSE social worker, had seen hundreds of cases like Samuel's, survivors looking for families that often no longer existed. "Monsieur Goldstein," as she said gently, "I'll be honest with you. Most families that remained in Paris during the occupation did not survive." Samuel showed the photograph. "Jacob Goldstein, musician, violinist, lived in the Marais with his wife Miriam and 2 daughters, Rachel and Rebecca." Madame Bernard examined the photo carefully, then checked her files. There were endless lists of dead, missing, deported. "I find no record of them here," she said. "This could be good or bad. It could mean they escaped somewhere else, or it could mean that they were killed without leaving a trace." Samuel completed. Samuel spent 2 weeks walking through the Marais, the old Jewish quarter of Paris. Many buildings were empty, with broken windows and sealed doors. The neighbors who had survived told similar stories. They took the Rosenthal family in May 1943. "The Bernsteins disappeared during winter. We never saw the family who lived on the 3rd floor again." But no one specifically remembered Jacob Goldstein, the violinist. It was at the apartment where Jacob had lived that Samuel found his first real clue. The building was being cleaned by an elderly lady, Madame Petit, who had been concierge during the war. "Goldstein, Goldstein," she murmured, trying to remember. "Ah, yes, the musician with the 2 little girls. They left in March 1943. One night they simply disappeared." Samuel's heart raced. "Disappeared?" What do you mean? They weren't taken by the Germans, Madame Petit clarified. They left on their own. I heard they tried to flee to Switzerland. This was the first real hope Samuel had had since liberation. If Jacob had tried to escape on his own, maybe he had succeeded. Maybe the family was alive somewhere. Madam, Samuel asked anxiously, do you know where they went? What route they used? I don't know, monsieur. But back then, many families tried to reach Switzerland through southern France, small towns near the border. If you're enjoying this video, please click the like button so YouTube can share it with more people. And if you enjoy this type of video, please subscribe to our channel. August 1945. With the clue that Jacob had tried to flee south, Samuel began a journey that would last years. He visited dozens of small towns between Paris and the Swiss border, showing the family photograph to anyone willing to look. Lyon, Annecy, Chambéry, Grenoble, in each city. The same routine: hotels, train stations, churches, synagogues, police stations. Samuel quickly learned that war had left fragmented records and traumatized memories. Many people preferred not to talk about what they had seen during the occupation. Others remembered refugee families, but details got mixed up. There had been so many families trying to escape that it became impossible to distinguish one from another. Yes, I remember Jewish musicians passing through here in 1943, a hotel keeper in Annecy said. But there were so many. They all seemed desperate. All had small children. In September 1945, Samuel was in Grenoble when he received a letter from OSE in Paris. Madame Bernard had found something in the Red Cross archives. Monsieur Goldstein, we found a record of a Jacob Goldstein, musician, who made contact with the French resistance in March 1943. The contact was made through an intermediary in a town called Beaumont-sur-Loire. We have no more details, but this could be the clue you're looking for: Beaumont-sur-Loire. Samuel had never heard of the town, but now he had a specific destination. He took the next train north, his heart racing for the first time in months. If Jacob had made contact with the resistance in Beaumont-sur-Loire, maybe someone there knew what had happened to the family. The train journey to Beaumont-sur-Loire gave Samuel time to reflect on the past months. He had lost 15 kilograms traveling through France, sleeping in train stations when he had no money for hotels, living on bread and soup when he was lucky, but he had also recovered something he thought he had lost forever in Buchenwald: hope. When the train stopped at the small station of Beaumont-sur-Loire on a cold October afternoon, Samuel stepped down with his small suitcase and the crumpled photograph. He didn't know he was just a few streets away from where his niece Rebecca had become Marie Dubois-Touhy, and a half years earlier. He didn't know that the answer to his search was playing piano at the local church every Sunday, and he didn't know that his 12-year journey was just beginning. Beaumont-sur-Loire, in October 1945, still bore the marks of war. Windows still covered with plywood, abandoned gardens, and a cautious silence that Samuel recognized, the silence of people who had seen too much and spoke little. His first stop was City Hall, where a tired official examined Jacob's photograph without recognition. "Monsieur, so many people passed through here during the war. Refugees, resistance fighters, fleeing families. It's impossible to remember them all." Samuel tried the local church, where Father Francois Moreau received him with sympathy, but little useful information. "My son," the priest said, "during the occupation, many people passed through our town seeking help. We helped when we could, but for security we kept few official records. Some documents were preserved in special archives, but it would require a more detailed investigation." "Father, please," Samuel insisted, showing the photograph. "This is my brother, musician, 2 small daughters. If they passed through here, someone must remember." It was at the Dubois bakery that Samuel had his first promising reaction. When he showed the photograph to Pierre Dubois, he saw something pass quickly through the baker's eyes, a flash of recognition that was immediately masked. Pierre held the photo for a second longer than necessary before returning it. "No," Pierre said too quickly. "I've never seen this family." But Samuel had learned to read people during his months of searching. There was something about Pierre's reaction that wasn't completely truthful. Samuel spent 3 days in Beaumont-sur-Loire, visiting every shop, every house, asking about Jacob Goldstein and his family. Most people said they didn't remember anything specific, but some reactions seemed evasive, as if people knew something but didn't want to talk. On the morning of his last day in town, Samuel was walking through the streets when he heard music coming from the church. It was Sunday and the organ was playing for morning mass, but there was something else, a piano accompanying, playing with impressive skill. Samuel, being a musician, stopped to listen. The person at the piano was clearly very talented. The improvisations were complex, emotional. They reminded him of Jacob's style, the way his brother played violin, finding melody in anything. Samuel discreetly entered the church during the end of Mass and saw who was playing. A girl of approximately 8 years old, light brown hair, playing with intense concentration. For a moment, his heart stopped. The age was right for Rebecca. Born in 1937, she would now be 8 years old. The musical talent was right, but the girl was clearly French, Catholic, part of the local community. It can't be, he thought. Rebecca would have dark hair, and certainly wouldn't be Catholic. When Mass ended, Samuel approached the girl's family. A baker he recognized from the bakery, his wife and an older boy, and now about 9 years old. "Excuse me," Samuel said politely. "Your daughter plays piano magnificently." "Merci," Claire Dubois replied with a smile. But Samuel noticed that Pierre seemed tense again. "Did she learn here in town?" "Yes, she's always played with us," Claire said quickly. Samuel nodded and walked away, but something continued to bother him about the baker's reaction. Samuel left Beaumont-sur-Loire that Sunday afternoon, convinced he had found nothing concrete. But on the train back to Paris, he couldn't stop thinking about the pianist girl and the baker's strange reaction. He wrote in his notebook, Beaumont-sur-Loire, possible connection with Jacob. Dubois Bakery, suspicious reaction. Investigate church music, parish archives and city hall. Pianist girl, exceptional talent, compatible age, but different appearance and religion. Over the next 10 years, Samuel Goldstein would visit over 200 cities, contact dozens of refugee organizations, and follow hundreds of false leads. He would never give up, never stop searching. And 3 more times he would return to Beaumont-sur-Loire, always with the feeling that there was something there he wasn't seeing. This was the second story of The Last Train Home, the story of how love can survive hell, and how a promise made among the dead can become the driving force of an entire lifetime. Next week, we'll discover how Samuel's search intensified between 1950 and 1954, and how a casual conversation in a Parisian cafe would lead him back to Beaumont-sur-Loire for the last time. If you liked this video, subscribe to the channel and share our video to help us spread our stories.